Welcome everybody. Hey, my name's Allyson Gofton and thank you for inviting me into your home to show you how to make a beautiful baklava for the Great Ryman Christmas Bake Off. Now I know some of the ladies have already made this out there. You may have heard about the winners, you may not have heard about the winners, but this is so you can all make what they've been cooking in a big competition. A baklava is a very rich Middle Eastern dessert. Well, it's actually not rich as much as it is sweet. And it's layers of Filo Pastry layered with nuts, either walnuts or hazelnuts. But today, you know, we're so lucky we can make it with almonds and macadamia nuts or Brazil nuts or whatever you would like. And it's quite special and it's quite delicious. And I'm also going to show you a couple of twists on how to make it pretty Christmassy, so that maybe you don't even have to do your Christmas mince tarts or your Christmas cake this year. So to get started, first of all, we've got to make a syrup. And yep, that's sugar. So we need 1.5 cups of sugar and 1.5 cups of water. So because it's just a simple syrup, I'm going to use ordinary granulated sugar. If it was something particularly important and could maybe turn on me and go kind of crusty, I might use caster sugar, but today just ordinary old sugar. So 1.5 cups, or it looks like a half, doesn't it? That'll do. Or you could use a cup of sugar and some honey, remembering that honey is really, really sweet, so maybe you'd only need 1/3 of the honey because otherwise it could be quite overpowering. Now, one of the things we do when we're making a sugar syrup for a baklava is to kind of just take the edge off that real sweet kind of heavy sucrose taste by adding in just a little bit of lemon juice. All right, so a squeeze of lemon juice is all we need. We need 1.5 cups of water. I'm just going to guess that one. Okay, that looks like it's about right. That's perfect. And then we can leave it like this, or we can flavour it up. Now, I quite like to add lots of different flavours when I make a baklava, but one of the base flavours I always use is vanilla. Vanilla is just the most beautiful spice. I've travelled the world to a couple of countries to see how this is grown. And the vanilla pod is like a green bean, and it hangs off a vine, and quite a handful of beans, and they're bright green, just like, you know, your French beans. And they take them off the vine, and then they put them under cover and let them ferment. And in that fermentation process, they go black. And then they should become lovely and soft like this. If you buy vanilla beans and they're hard, they're not good. They're just dried and old. Can you hear the birds? We've got so many swallows in this place, it's ridiculous. Or maybe it's sparrows. So to use a vanilla pod, what you're going to do is you're going to cut it down. I'm just going to move this so that the camera can come in close and see what I'm going to do. You're going to cut down the vanilla pod here. And when you open it up, inside are all these little seeds. And you run your knife down the inside of it and you get the paste. And that's what is the vanilla seeds. I'm going to pop that in there, plus this. And the reason for that is you can use the vanilla bean over and over and over again, or you can do what I do, which is, I've got this wonderful drawer here. It's got everything you ever want to bake in it. I just love it. My kitchen is new. You might be able to tell that because actually it's not quite finished yet, and we will get there one day. So in the bottom of here, I'm going to go for a bit of a dig. Let's hope I can find it. Maybe I can't. Oh, here they are. Look, here they are. Here's all the vanilla beans. You see? I've kept them for such a long time and I just add to them. I just keep adding them. Wrap another piece of rubber band around them and pop them into my sugar container to scent up the vanilla caster sugar. Right, pop that back here. Now, when we're thinking about a baklava for Christmas, what flavours do we think of for Christmas? Rum, brandy, anything, or whiskey or something like that. Rum is my favourite at Christmas time, but I haven't got any, but I have got some brandy. I've got some brandy. The other thing that's really cool to flavour all this up with is cinnamon. Now, I know that a lot of you will have seen cinnamon quills. So these are cinnamon quills. This comes from the bark of a tree that grows in the tropics. But there's also another cinnamon that we get confused with, not quite cinnamon, another bark. It's called Cassia. And this is Cassia. And what it is, it's a tree that's grown further up from the tropics. It's kind of like in the temperate zone, so a little bit further up from the tropics. And they take it off the tree in big pieces and they leave it on a rack in the sun and it twists. Now Cassia is a coarser flavour than cinnamon, and Cassia is called baker's cinnamon in the baking trade. As a result, we get confused between whether that's a Cassia flavour or a cinnamon flavour. But if you buy a fruit bun from Baker's Delight and it's supposed to be a cinnamon bun, I guarantee you it's actually been flavoured with Baker's cinnamon, which is Cassia. Right, you can file that under U for useless today. So we could do cinnamon. We could also do some of my other favourite things from the Middle East. This is rose water. And literally it is steamed rose petals and the collected essence is what they call rose blossom water. Absolutely beautiful. And this is another one, and this is orange blossom water. And so when your orange trees go into flower and they've got that beautiful scent, you take those, you can soak them in your vodka if you want to, leave them there for a week, strain it off. You might need to give it a bit of a boil to make sure you get rid of any bugs or anything like that. And you've got orange blossom water. Now it's really quite hedonistic. Smelling good, but the other thing I'm going to add to that now is I'm going to add just a little touch of the brandy because I just got to have that Christmas flavour. And today, was that a touch? And a bit more, eh? Because it's going to simmer for a bit, so we need to make sure that we've got plenty of good flavour there. Maybe you've got some cognac. I don't know. And so we're just going to leave this to simmer. Now the idea with sugar is that you stir it until the sugar dissolves. If you don't do that, you can get fudge. So I'm going to get my son, who's just over here in the corner and doesn't know about this. He's going to come in and just stir it until it dissolves, and then we're going to simmer it. So this is Jean-Luc.
Hey everyone.
And we're just going to, there we go, and just a wooden spoon. And we're not going to leave it unstirred while the sugar is dissolving. Now the reason for that is that if the water boils, are you listening?
Pay attention.
Pay attention. If the water boils before the sugar's dissolved and then you continue to do the stirring and it's boiling, turns to fudge really quickly. We say turns. So what happens is that the sugar chemicals or the molecular structure of the sugar is quite happy swimming around, and then you do something to it and it goes like this and it seizes and it turns. I'm sure you've had this happen, and it turns into hard, crusty pieces of toffee. Right. So while Jean-Luc's doing that, we are now going to start on the fun part of the baklava, which is the filo pastry and all the nuts. So filo pastry is a pastry from the Middle Eastern area of our world. It's what we buy is not exactly what you get when you go to those kind of places, but it is flour and water and salt, the basics for most of our pastries and breads. It's rolled out absolutely thinly, like a strudel dough. But when I worked in Europe, you would have made the dough and you would have spun it in your hand, and then you would have rolled it, and then you stretch it and stretch it. And it's just that you use a flour that doesn't have a lot of gluten in it, and it just stretches beautifully into this kind of lovely dough, beautiful dough. So today we buy it like this. Now, if you're buying it and it's coming out of a freezer, make sure you allow it to defrost in the fridge or on your kitchen bench. Don't try to unravel it before it's completely defrosted, otherwise it just breaks into pieces on you. Normally you'll find it in the chiller section of the fridge, usually somewhere between the cottage cheese and the hummus. Right, now when we use filo, we have to keep it moist. So what you need is you need a tea towel and you need to dampen it just a little bit. I bought myself the flashiest tap you've ever seen. Oh, isn't it gorgeous? Right. My husband thought it was an excessive purchase, and it was. Right, so we're just going to pop this on a damp cloth, okay? And then we're going to cover it with another damp cloth. Make sure you've got a clean tea towel, girls. Don't want last night's dinner on the tea towel on top of the phyllo. And that's so it doesn't dry out, because it's very thin and it does dry out. So what we're needing to do is find our baking dish. Oh, is that dissolved? Beautiful. Look at that. And we're just... So now that this is dissolved, I am just going to leave that to simmer away so that all the flavours like the brandy and the vanilla and that little bit of lemon juice just simmer in together. You need a baking dish. Any baking dish will do. This is the only one that I have. But something that's a bit bigger, or 23 or 25 centimetre cake tin, will be just fine. Okay, so I'm going to line it. You don't normally have to do that, but I'm lining it because the sides are so deep. And if I want to get it out later on, I'm going to use the lining to be able to lift it up to get it out, okay? So, there we are. Just, that's all I have to do, but it's just going to help me get it out of the tin. Right, so melted butter, lots and lots of melted butter. I don't know what people do without butter. I think it is my most favourite thing in life, as can be seen by the size of my hips. That's the horse in the background. Its name is Max, belongs to my 14-year-old daughter, and she loves it more than she loves us. That's fine. Okay, so in the Filo Pastry boxes, there's somewhere about 18 sheets, somewhere like that. Some will have more, some will have less. And what we're going to do is we're going to put about 8 in the bottom to make the base of our baklava, okay? So, taking the first sheet of pastry, see, lovely and thin. In fact, that's pretty. Get a decent glazing brush, and if you haven't got a decent glazing brush, get a paintbrush, you know, a clean one, okay, a paintbrush. And then we're going to put, working quickly, that on top. Perfection is fantastic, but not essential, okay? If it's perfect, it's not homemade. 3. And we're not going to pack it down because we need a little bit of space for the air and for the crispiness of the baklava or of the pastry to cook through. So don't think you have to squash it down. Are we counting? That's 4. Right. Now, these go into our baking tin, just here. There we are. As I say, just pop that in, just like that. Beautiful. Now, while I'm making the filling, which actually I should have made before I did the pastry, but hey ho, too busy thinking ahead, I'm just going to cover this up with my damp towel so that the pastry doesn't dry out, okay? And in that, I can roll it up and it's going to be fine. So the filling for a baklava is walnuts traditionally, can be hazelnuts. I remember hazelnuts in France. They're the first nut that comes into season. They are just the most amazing thing in the markets. They're green, almost they look like something that's being beautifully painted by an artist. They're so perfect. And then the filberts, that's their real name, and you open them up and inside is this nut, and it's kind of like this soft green leafy kind of knobbly thing, and I haven't done very well at describing that at all, but it is beautiful. So over here is my food processor, and we're going to make the filling. It's nuts and sugar, more sugar. Sugar, of course, is one of those things that we get from the Middle East, especially from Morocco, and it came to us and to our diet, and I suppose our history and our food, from the Crusades. because we sent off a lot of people down there to fight in the crusade, somewhere around 1400. They came back with spices and sugar and rose water and saffron. That's another thing they brought back. So you find a lot of the desserts across the north of Africa will be very sweet because they're able to grow the sugar. So in my food processor here, I'm going to put walnuts today. Now, girls, keep your nuts in the freezer. Always keep your nuts in the freezer because nuts are very high in oil. As a result, they go rancid very quickly. And when we buy nuts in the supermarket, often they're not fresh anyway. I mean, who wants stale nuts? So what you do is you take them home, and what I do is I roast them just for a few moments, and that brings out a beautiful rich smell and flavor in the nuts. Then you freeze them, and you can take them in and out of the freezer because they're not high in water. As a result, they don't deteriorate like things that you might put in the freezer, vegetables, fruit, because they're so high in water. Nuts are high in oil, so they don't, in protein and more the whatever nuts are made up of, but not a lot of water, which means freeze them and they stay lovely and fresh. So we need 2.5 cups of nuts. I think that's enough. And added to that, we need 1/2 cup of ground almonds. And again, keep it in the freezer. Like coconut. Coconut is a nut. Even though it's actually a drupe, like the plum, it's got a high oil content and it will go rancid. All right? Now we need some spices to go into this. And the recipe calls for some cinnamon, which is beautiful. Remembering the cinnamon and the cassia. Also some mace. Now mace, I went to the other side of the world to find how nutmegs arrived in our cuisine. I went to the Spice Islands, which is just to the side of Irian Jaya. That's on the other side of New Guinea. And it was nutmeg season. Honestly, I was in 7th heaven. And so the mace is the lace covering that grows on the outside of the nutmeg. And it's all encased in the most beautiful looking fruit, like a green plum. And when you split it open, this is vibrant Christmas red, and it dries to orange. It is quite a different smell to nutmeg, which is what it covers. So it comes wrapped around the nutmeg. I'm just going to put this here. It comes wrapped around the nutmeg. So today I'm going to use a little bit of nutmeg because I love nutmeg. I think it's a real flavour of the Christmas pudding. We're going to use 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. What? I hope you didn't get that. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. But no ginger today because I didn't get it out. Right, so now we're going to pulse this. Now the reason we pulse it is because, I'm not sure if you could see the action, but it goes up and down, as opposed to whiz, whiz, whiz. As a result, you get a far more even, nice textured mixture, all right? So now we're going to mix that with a little bit of sugar because we need some more sugar. And I think I've got everything I need in it. Now just to show you, did you get that noise? I'm just going to put this in here so that you can see the texture. It's a little bit smooth and a little bit chunky. And I have to tell you that the smell or the aroma that's coming off that is simply beautiful. And we need sugar. I think it's about 1/2 cup. And what happens is that sugar is going to melt in the oven and it's going to hold all the nuts together. Now, I need to tell you what I've done for one that I've made earlier. Instead of using ground almonds to give it a Christmas flavour, I actually got hold of some gorgeous ginger kisses. Now we all love ginger kisses. I took them to pieces. I'll just show you what I did. With the ginger kisses, I took them to pieces. I took out the butter and I ground them up, and I used these instead of the ground almonds. And it's given my baklava a bit of a cake texture, but also a really delicious Christmas flavour. And then what I added into that, and we're going to have a look at it at the end, is I added in my red tin, I added in some red cherries and some green cherries, which I've gone to an awful lot of trouble to put in a green tin and a red tin because it's Christmas. And I put in some green cherries. And so when we cut into it, hopefully what we're going to see is a lovely mixture of all our traditional Christmas colours with a lovely ginger flavour, a bit like a gingerbread. So that's what I've made for us. Okay, so now we're just going to stir that. And so we've got nuts, we've got spices and sugar. Okay, let's get back to the assembly bit. So here is the layers that we've got in here of the Filo pastry. Now what we do is we add in half of the nut mixture. It's about half. And we just sprinkle that out. All right. All over. There we go. Beautiful. That's there. Good thing I've got a big bench, eh? And here we are, back to the Filo pastry. So now we want 2 sheets of Filo pastry. One. I'm going to butter these up. When we lived in France, and some of you may recall that when I left Food in a Minute, my husband and I, that's the gorgeous Warwick, also known as the Muffin, and he's known as the Muffin because when I met him, I was writing my first book. In the days when you had DOS computers, and these kids filming this have got no idea what I'm talking about, I just need to tell you, and the printer would go, nee, 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 nee. You all remember that, I'm sure. And the first chapter he ever sat and typed up for me was the Muffin chapter. And sadly, he's a science graduate and not an English graduate. So whenever there was a plural, it became apostrophe S. So if ever you see the Great New Zealand Baking Book, that's the original, you'll find grammar mistakes galore. Okay, just letting you know. So that's how we got called Muffin. I'm going to pop this on top here, all right? It's just going to go into the middle. Lovely. And now what we're going to do is put the rest of the nuts on top. Lovely. Good thing I've got a big sink. And again, just spreading that out so it's nice and even, okay? Now, I don't know if you're like me, but this reminds me, the Filo reminds me of those new plastic bags that you've got in the supermarket. You know, when you go in and you rip them off and you can't open them, and you go, you've got your mask on, and all you want to do is go and open the plastic bag, but somebody comes up and goes, no, you pull it, and then it will just open. By this time, you're half suffocated from wearing your plastic mask, your glasses are fogged up, and you're thinking this is all far, far too complicated. Oh. Just give me a paper bag. A paper bag. What happened to paper bags? Now I know I'm old. They're all laughing at me behind the cameras here. Look at that, see? This is a bit like the cheats way of doing it, girls. Now, a good dose of butter on the top one because we want that to be golden. Now, when we're cooking a baklava or anything that's made with a Filo pastry, we need to cook it at a medium temperature, so 180 or 350 degrees Fahrenheit if you're still working there. And we need to let it cook medium and long because we want the pastry to be crispy. If we cook it too high and it browns, the pastry on the inside of your dish, whatever it is, will still be uncooked. And that is kind of like raw in that it just isn't golden and crispy in layers, and it should be golden and crispy in layers, right? So this now goes here on top. There we are. Beautiful. And tuck the sides down. You can, if you want to, trim them. It's a bit fussy though. But you can be fussy. Fussy's good. But not essential. Remember, if it's perfect, it's not homemade. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to mark it out traditionally in diamonds. Baklava is always sold in diamonds. I've never been able to find out why, but I often wonder if it's got something to do with the stars, because in Muslim culture, that beautiful blue, which is actually everywhere in my house, is the colour of divinity. And they just love it. It's the colour of the stars and of God, their God, Muhammad. And I wonder if the baklava somehow is like a star. I'm not sure, but anyway, so we're going to cut it into just into shapes now. Going to mark it out so that when it's cooked, and all we have to do now is put it in the oven. Literally bake it. And it's going to take about 20, 30 minutes to bake so that it's beautiful and crispy. And then while it's hot, and you'll hear this when we do it, we're going to pour the sugar syrup over the top. So I'm going to pop this in the oven now. Yes, could do with a clean, I'm sure. In we go. Right. While my baklava is cooking, I'm just going to show you another thing or another way, or a twist on what we've done that you might like to try. So I've got out some green and red cherries. I'm just going to chop those up. Here's our Christmas colours. And going to pop those into a nut mix. Just exactly like we had to do the baklava. It is exactly the baklava nut mix. Just going to mix those in. Now, if you've got some cherry liqueur, maraschino, is that what we called it? You might like to put a little dash of that in here to bring out a bit of flavour. Take a sheet of phyllo, butter it well, and then we're going to fold it into 3 lengthwise. Lengthways. Which way should my grammar go? Butter again, right? I'm going to take a jolly good spoonful of now our Christmas nut mixture, pop it up in the top corner, okay? Then fold them over like a triangle, carefully, which is a triangle, and we're going to take it all the way down, fold that in, over like that, and onto your baking tray. So you've got individual baklava, which is just delightful. And you will find that if you make them like this, that the amount of filling you need is probably much less than if you're making the whole baklava, because you could just make, you know, as many as you would like. Just in the corner, and I believe from all the gorgeous people around me that you can hear my oven. Now, in amongst this beautiful kitchen that I have designed so that it is blue and gold, because golden colours and the ochre colour comes in every kitchen I've ever built, I haven't convinced the husband, also known as the muffin, to buy me a new oven. So we have a very old oven in the house. It works like a treat. There is actually no reason to replace it, except that it's noisy. So maybe after he's seen this, my father-in-law, who is at Ryman, might ring him up and say, buy that woman a new oven. Right, so remember, in the corner, and we're going to make a triangle. This is how you do, even put cheese in it and prawns or whatever, and you just make these gorgeous little nibbly bits. And by the time you've folded it 4 times, you have completely enclosed the filling inside the triangle, and it will not come out when you bake it. Okay, so now what we do then is we get, so Puppy has joined me in the kitchen. A serrated edge knife is better for this. 3 little cuts on the top, remembering we've got to put syrup on this and we want the syrup to go inside. Always butter, generous. Something else I've got to show you is these. Look, I bought these back from France. I wish we could get them here. You'd probably get them online. They're called grains of sugar. Look at this. And you see them in photos of recipes from overseas. And they're just gorgeous. And we can sprinkle a few of those on here. Look at that. Is that beautiful? Lovely. We can pop those in the oven. So what do they look like when they're cooked? Well, here we go. Look at this. So I took them out of the oven. I rolled them in the syrup in the saucepan, let them drain on a rack, collecting the syrup underneath and just putting it back on top. And there you have them, and you can serve them cold or warm. And that's just a bit of a twist. Sure, it's not traditional, but it's just a nice way to do that. So that's twist number 1. Here comes twist number 2. Checking that it's cooking. Oh, that's very beautiful. Right, here's another way to do something gorgeous. Take your phyllo, brush it. You can tell by now that I'm getting carried away and I'm making quite a mess around the place, right? And I think we need 2 sheets for this. Okay, 2 sheets, there we go. More butter, needed more butter. Lots of butter. Lots of butter for this one. And we're going to take our nut mixture, we're going to run it down the length, all right? I often think sometimes I'd like to have a shop where I could teach people to cook during the lunch hours, but I don't know, life with a 14-year-old gets rather busy and I don't get to do that anymore. Roll that up, right? Not too tightly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll that, and stay with me, just ducking off to the pantry. Yes, it's in a cake tin and I'm back with you. And I kept rolling it around and around and around and made a whole beautiful circle. Look at that. So that we can cut that into wedges. Look. At this point, I pray that it's going to come out. There you go. Look. Is that not just fantastic? So all I would do is pop that in here, and you just keep making circles and joining them up until you fill it in. And it's another lovely way to have the filling of the baklava. This uses half the amount of nuts that we have used in the one that's in the oven, okay? So you could make 2 like this as opposed to 1 that's in the oven. So let's have a look what happens when I cut it open. I'll just clean the knife. Here we go. So, which is the best way for me to cut it? To you?
No,
to you?
Me.
To you?
Yeah,
okay.
He's tight and I'm like...
He's tight and you're loose?
Yeah.
Okay. My kind of boys. Right, okay. So we can... Oh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Pop that on a plate, and you know, when it will need cream or something that's kind of got some richness to it to go with it, or mascarpone. Flavour it with a little bit of rose water and serve that on the side. Maybe throw a rose petal or 2 on the side of it. How easy is Christmas Day instead of the Christmas pudding? So that's that one, and this is the second variation. So from the recipe, you can create lots of different ways to serve it. You could even make little bonbons. I didn't get to that one. Right, let's get ready to put the syrup over the one that's been cooking in the oven. Let's see how it's gone. Absolutely and utterly beautiful. Because I've cooked it in a copper dish, this is one of my pride and joy. Oh, got to show you the other pride and joy. Just while I'm going, girls. Sorry, sound man. Finished. Look at this. This is a sauce making saucepan. And every time I get it out, I go, because I just love it. It's got no corners in it. So you don't have to get your wooden spoon and try and dig out the bits of white sauce that have got caught in the corner, or custard or mashed potato or whatever. Okay, that's one of the joys in my house. Sad, isn't it, that I get carried away with the saucepan. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to remark here. Now, what I was saying was, before I took myself off on that tangent, was that because I've cooked this in a copper roasting dish, it has cooked a little faster, and you can see that the edges are golden brown. They're not burnt, so they're not buggered, okay? Just golden brown and beautiful. Right, and I've done this so that the syrup will go over. And here's our syrup. That's been simmering away. Now there's quite a lot of syrup, and it is a lot of syrup because it is supposed to be completely drenched. Remembering with the vanilla pod, look at that lovely flavouring coming out there. With the vanilla pod, you're going to rinse it under a little bit of warm water, going to leave it somewhere to dry, not where the flies will get on it, okay? And then you're going to pop it away, or you'll put it in the caster sugar, okay? I'll pop it in there. I'm in the country, there's more flies than you can believe. I'm just going to give this a bit of a whisk because that will just, oh my gosh, the brandy and the orange blossom and the vanilla, heaven. So we're just going to pour this Do you love that noise? Yeah. Oh, it smells so good. So just going to leave that now. It'll go cool and you'll be able to cut it into those beautiful diamonds. You're going to keep it in a cool place. You're not going to keep it in the fridge because it gets, when food is really cold or food is really hot, you cannot taste it. So even though you might want to have something like ice cream, you know if you get it out of the freezer and it's rock hard and you go to lick it, it's nowhere near as enjoyable if it's just sat a few moments and it just begins to soften. That's the same for anything. That if it's too hot or too cold, you can't taste it. So if this is served too cold, all you get is an absolute rush of sugar. You're not going to pick up the flavours of the orange blossom and the vanilla, and you certainly won't be able to appreciate the beautiful toasted walnuts that we've got in here. So let's have a look at the collection of baklava and all the ways that I've made it today for you to see what you can do at your place for Christmas. This is the one that I've made with the gingerbread. So it's, well, actually the ginger gems and the nuts, and look at it, is it not just divine? So I'm going to cut that and pop it on this beautiful plate. So it's exactly the recipe that you have, and all I've done is instead of using ground almonds, I used a packet, a small packet of ginger gems, and I just crumbed up the cake. There we are. Look at that. Yum, 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 yum. Oh, look at it, it's missing a nut. There we go. Pop them on there. And because we can, let's put a few rose petals in and around this one. What you can't see is the dog. The dog's name is Matty. And what you cannot see is the puppy, who's looking lovingly at me, thinking that I'm cutting up toast and that she wants a piece. Right? Look, do you want a piece? Just a little bit. Okay, she said just a little bit. Yeah, I know. She said naughty, mummy. Now mine is warm because I was too busy making too many other variations to make one like this last night. But look at that. Oh, vanilla cream, or there used to be the most amazing rose ice cream from Lewis Road. If you get that with this, you're in Christmas heaven. See more, puppy. There we go. Oh. Uh-oh. Just delicious. But I've got something beautiful to tell you. Oh, lovely. And I need my phone. Okay? Which means I also need my glasses. I want to tell you, and I want to show you, 3 beautiful women and what they did to cook off for the final to win the Ryman Bake Off Mystery Christmas Box Cooking Challenge. Margaret Clayton Green is our winner, and she is from Linda Jones Village, and our runners-up are Shona Bull from Hilda Ross Village and Mary Mackay from the James Watty Village. Truly to goodness, these women are just beautiful, and they have cooked a most perfect baklava. I do hope they had a lot of fun, and I've had a lot of fun doing this for you. So, it is good. So, here we are. Look at all the ways you can just take that one recipe and you can change it into different ideas. And these are just my ideas, and I'm sure that you've got lots of ideas. But each of these are just a mouthful of deliciousness. And I do hope you'll find time to try them this Christmas. So thank you for joining me, and may I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.